Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm Gary Boomer, visionary and strategist at BoomerConsulting, and with me today I have Marc Staut. Hi, Marc.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Marc's a shareholder and chief innovation officer, technology officer here at BoomerConsulting, and today we have a hot topic. We're going to talk about leveraging AI disruption. And you can look at it as disruption or you can look at it as empowerment, but it's real today. And Marc's certainly an expert in this area. I know I'm spending a lot of time, as many firm leaders are trying to get their arms around AI and how it's been a rapidly developing extension of the technology that we've been using for years. And one of the things I'd like to start by asking you, Marc, is how has the integration of AI technology transformed the role of results leaders in the field of accounting?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gary, because, results leaders are focused on making things happen, right? They're the ones who are charged with not just sitting around and dreaming, but really thinking about how do we bring innovation into the firm. And so often with some of these technologies, they're emerging technologies. There's not necessarily a lot that you can do except get ready to embrace it and think about how you're going to include it later on. That is not the case with these large language learning models of AI that we've been introduced to. They have burst out onto the scene, and all of a sudden they are available for anyone and everyone to use. And that is really exciting because now you can start to leverage this inside your firm and do things like driving capacity or increase capabilities and really think about ways that you can bring more innovation and more opportunity into the firm.
Yes, I totally agree that there is a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of political jargon going around about AI, but it's been around for 50, 60 years. And, Ray Kurzweil's law of increasing or acceleration of return, when you double something and it's only 0.5, it doesn't make a lot of difference. But when it gets up to 15, 20, 25 and you double it, and now we're in over 50 years of this, and this is even surprised Ray a bit of how fast AI has taken off in the new version. And I would say, what do you see as some examples so we can start off here with some things that firms can do right away that you're seeing AI assisting in?
Yeah, and Gary, I think it's a really good point. AI has been around for a long time, or some of the machine learning opportunities that have been out there, right? We've been talking about this since the 60s. This is not new. It's been iterating as it goes along, but now we're finally at that point where it's gone mainstream. Now, it's still really, really early days of mainstream. Like, it's a very nascent technology. There are some flaws. Everything is not perfect at all. And it really reminds me of when the internet went mainstream. One day, there were a couple of people at educational universities playing around with this newfangled thing called the internet or DARPANET. And the next day, Netscape comes out and some of the browsers, and all of a sudden, everybody's jumping on the web. And it's like, wow, this really happened very quickly, even though it didn't, right? So, this has been going on for a little while. Now, how it gets applied to business is still very new. That's where we need to remember that we're in the early days of this. Some of the things that are going to be tried are going to be amazing successes, and some of them that are going to be tried are going to be going back to the drawing board. But we don't want to wait for 100% perfection. We really need to jump into leveraging these technologies and learning where those opportunities are, because I do think there are first mover advantages that are available. Now, where are we seeing some of the firms start to leverage this? I think the thing that I am hearing most frequently right now is in content generation, right? Whether that is coming up with articles and thought leadership and things to send to your client, or whether it's summaries of technical information that has come out, and basically boiling that down so it's easier to kind of get your head around. Or even there are some examples of people who are using it to take notes. And so they'll actually go through a meeting, and all of the notes they've taken in OneNote or whatever note-taking application they have, they feed that in, and ChatGPT or some of these other AIs can summarize that for you, turn it into bullet points, and also identify the actionable items that came off of there. So you're literally removing the need to have a scribe sit in there and take official notes and things like that. That's kind of a cool use case scenario. I'm also hearing about how it is being used to generate emails. If communications is not your forte, then putting in, hey, I want to write an email about X, Y, and Z. Specifically, I want to talk about a very difficult subject. I need to tell my client that I need to raise their billing rates or something to that effect. ChatGPT can actually help out and say, hey, this is a nice way to say that, and be very professional about it. Content generation obviously isn't the only thing we're seeing. We're also seeing the simplification of technical information. You can actually take a document that comes out as a PDF, and it will ingest it and turn it into a 2-paragraph, 2-page, 1-page, whatever you need summary of that. So some of these really lengthy technical guidance options that are coming out are really a good way to use the AI to boil it down into the most salient points for people to be able to leverage. And I think that also leads into kind of the opportunity to use it as a technical resource. So let's say that you've got somebody who has recently joined your firm. They went through all of their onboarding training. Things are looking great. And they get a job that requires, I don't know, pick something like SALT, state and local tax expertise. And, they know that they were told how to do it, but they don't quite remember. And they don't remember who to go to. Putting it into ChatGPT could be enough of a technical resource that it lets them get back to working again. It might be an easy solve without having to get a high-level manager or senior manager or even director involved. Now, those are some really cool use cases. It's not always as easy as it first seems, but that's some of the ways that I've been hearing it being used. What about you, Gary? What are you hearing so far?
Well, you mentioned meeting management and the scribe. Otter AI has been around for quite some time, but many people who are using this application, they're recording their consulting calls. Now it's with client permission, and there are rules and regulations here. But for internal meetings, as you said, using that and then taking a tool like ChatGPT, and we want to make sure that we'll talk a little bit about how this is much broader than just Microsoft and ChatGPT and
Yep.
what's coming in the marketplace. But Otter AI, and then using one of these tools to summarize those minutes and notes, will amaze you about how quickly that can be done. And also writing job descriptions, or even for today's podcast, I said, what are some of the questions that would be relevant in a podcast for CPA results leaders? And we came up with some questions, and they were pretty darn close. Now, we put our own twist and our intellectual capital and knowledge into this, but I think this is the point that we really want to stress with our audience today, that mindset and staying on top of this, because this is not a trend that's 3 years, 5 years away. The development in this is weekly. And what you're seeing from Microsoft, Google, other players in this, you need to have somebody internally that's staying on top of this. So
Yep.
mindset and having someone watching what's going on in the market, because all of the vendors that we talk to in the accounting profession, they're all scrambling to implement AI and machine learning into their products. So, Mike or Mark, do you mind talking a little bit about some of those processes that can be automated? And what I'm referring to here are, I'm just going to take a basic one in accounting firms that they're frustrated with. I'm not sure that everyone will agree, but I would say billing and collection is one area that AI can definitely help and save a lot of operational time and partner time and probably do a better job and improve cash flow. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's lots of ways that it can be applied. And, it really comes down to sitting down and thinking about what AI is going to be good at. It can do some amazing analysis. It can look for trends. It can look for exceptions that are in there as well. And it can also streamline things. So it can really say, oh, instead of having to sit down and type out this report, you can actually have it ingest information and then look for some of those trends, look for some of those opportunities. Some of the more advanced automation that is there, still, it's still a bit of a manual process to engage the AI right now. But we're already seeing that second generation kind of lining up to incorporate things. So, for instance, Microsoft, who invested heavily in OpenAI, which is the company that is over ChatGPT, Microsoft invested heavily in OpenAI. So they're building that into their Microsoft 365 suite, Office suite. And it's going to be called Microsoft Copilot. So now all of a sudden, you're going to have access to these AI tools inside your workflow, inside PowerPoint. So you'll be able to say, hey, I want to make these 5 points, and it will create a slide for you with those 5 points. It'll be in Excel or Word or some of those other things. So we're not just seeing automation opportunities, we're really seeing tight integration opportunities.
Yes, and I think the integration piece is very challenging for firms because they have a lot of these tools available for them, but some of them are writing policies because of the security and privacy of data that won't allow their people to use that. How do you see that playing out here going forward?
It's funny because there's three ways that firms are going right now. One is very extreme. They don't understand what's happening with AI. They're concerned about all of the different risks that are out there, and there are definitely some legitimate risks. And they're trying to do what they used to do in the early days of the internet and lock people out and say, hey, you can't use this. And so they're completely blocking these tools, which I think is a critical mistake on every single level, because people are accessing those tools off of their phone. I actually have an interface for ChatGPT on my Apple Watch. You can't block that in the office. And besides, most people are working from home right now. So it's very naive to think that we're going to be able to stop that. Now, the other thing that people are doing is they're trying to limit it and say, don't use it. You're not allowed to use it. They're trying to limit it by policy. Only this small group of testers or pilot people can use it, and then we'll give you more guidance. And I think that that's better than trying to lock things down. But I honestly think that people are going to go out of their way to try to use this to save time and save opportunities in their work and build that capacity. So the best approach is really to do two things. It's to have a strong policy. And by the way, ChatGPT can get you 80 to 90% there with a, how do I write a policy about using ChatGPT? So it'll write its own policy, and then all you need to do is tweak it for your firm. The other is really education. Hey, these are the risks involved with this. We don't want you to not use it, but we want you to make sure that you are really watching over some of those risks and that you're not putting the firm in a bad position, or even themselves, the people themselves, in a bad position.
Well, we as a company have always gone outside the accounting profession for ideas, and we've been involved with Abundance 360, Peter Diamandis's group for, I guess, 8, 9 years, and Strategic Coach. And one of the things that I'm hearing from entrepreneurs, and these are your clients out there, they're all testing AI and implementing it into their organizations. And one of the critical skills that you may or may not have, and you may not even know if you have it, is prompt writing. And you might talk a little bit about prompt writing and how important that has become and how important it is for people to gain experience. And Peter Diamandis, one of the things that he suggests is you have a chief AI officer. Now, that sounds higher than it probably is on the organizational chart, but he said that person may or may not have a college degree. They may be a 17 to 25-year-old person who has a passion for this, to learn and stay on top of the companies and what's happening with the companies in the way of merger, acquisition, integration. Thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, I think when we talk about prompt writing, I think we can simplify this a little bit, right? There are people who are amazing at getting good results out of Google, right? They seem to always be able to pull stuff up really, really quickly. And then there's other people who are like, well, I got a bunch of results and I didn't understand exactly what they meant and I didn't have time to sort through them. In its simplest form, ChatGPT and some of these large language learning models all they're really doing is being the next generation of search, right? That's really what we're doing here. And instead of giving you 100 different responses and web pages that you then have to go through, it's summarizing all of those things for you. Now, these things are also persistent. So if I put in a prompt and say, hey, give me some information on X, Y, and Z, and it does it, but it's a little bit too broad, I can then start to narrow that down. And there is a bit of a skill that goes along with that in understanding how to maximize the information that is coming back out of there. Do I think that we're all going to get to the point where we're able to do that fairly successfully? Yes. Do I think that there will be expertise where people are able to best leverage that system and seem to get more out of it than everybody else? Also, yes. So having somebody who really is focused on leveraging these large language learning models or these AIs, I think is going to be absolutely critical. Whether you call it your head of AI or innovation, or even just your AI wrangler. I've heard that term before, and I'm kind of fond of that one because I like the idea of kind of wrestling it into doing what we actually want it to do, not what we hoped it would do, but what we want it to do. So if you look at that as an AI wrangler type of role, somebody who's really good at it, and we're giving them the space and the time and the creativity to do that, I think that's really important.
Well, we have a limited amount of time today, and I knew we'd run out of time quickly, but let's touch on a couple of other areas that you see in firms. We mentioned operations. Would you
Yep.
talk about marketing and sales? Because I think they're very critical to the future of our profession, and they've
Yep.
been downplayed
Yeah.
much. And I think you touched on the innovation tie to AI too. So we might close out with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you kind of some, I'll close out with some thoughts on innovation in a minute. But I do think that the ability to leverage AI in different capacities throughout the firm is one of its real strengths. So looking at marketing and sales, one of the things that firms have struggled to do for a very long time, they don't generally have content writers. They have great expertise, but they don't always have thought leadership that is embedded inside the firm. And part of that is time, part of that may be inclination, but it's really hard to sit down and get your thoughts together on a specific subject, especially if you're not used to trying to educate people and build that up and everything else. And ChatGPT in particular is so excellent at speaking on a subject. Even if it is a subject that you're an expert on, you can put in some parameters for what you want it to write about. And it may get, again, 70, 80% there. And then you're able to go in and really tweak that and make it your own and add your expertise. These AIs are not going to replace high level expertise. In fact, if you are a high level subject matter expert and you are testing these AIs to see if it knows more than you do, it doesn't. And it will be a long time probably before it does because the specialization is so unique. That's actually the opportunity. So take what anybody else can get out of the system and then build off of that. And all of a sudden, you've got something that's very compelling to your clients, very useful to the firm as your brand, as your thought leadership there. I think another example is in consulting. we talk about this all the time, that firms want to be more consultative to their clients. And so even leveraging AI to say, hey, what are the 10 best steps to improve the business model of XYZ type of business? It just got you 80% of the way there. And now you can add your expertise and the insights that you know about your clients and personalize it for them much faster, much simpler. That builds capacity across all levels of the firm, which is really exciting right now.
I agree. And I will say that the majority, maybe even 95% of our audience are using AI today. They may not realize it, but AI in the form of Siri, Alexa, some of those, they bring on their challenge as well. But it's come a long ways in just 2 years. And I think we're going to see the speed of this pick up. So, Mark, I really thank you. We could probably do another session on this with some more specifics. Maybe we will in the future. Your insights are always right on target. And for our listeners out there, if you enjoyed the conversation, we release an episode of this on every Tuesday. And it's not all about technology or AI. We have episodes on process, firm leadership, how to grow your firm, and also on talent development. So these are all key critical factors. And I was just listening to a 25 trends that Jim Boomer, our CEO, is putting on for BDO this morning. And I saw a lot of heads nodding when they saw that process and technology really go together. And without them, it's hard to advance. And you have to have the leadership and ability to commit the resources here. So until next time, Mark, thank you. And thanks to our audience. We look forward to another podcast with you in the future. Good day.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
You're welcome.